It's been a while since I made a video, but I want to talk about one of the topics that I've been meaning to talk about. Not in depth, but just a little bit, and that is numerology. And the reason why numerology is a relevant concept to talk about right now is because I'm used to having its significance primarily within my own personal life and my friend Blake. We've both experienced a lot of these together, but I was challenged uh, by my brother to make a prediction with numerology if it's objectively real, and not just what do you call it, confirmation bias. Then you should be able to use it to make a prediction. And so I tried that out because when I heard that the month of February, the second month, was going to be have the 22nd, so 222 in the year 2022. So all those twos in a row. And then also it was occurring on a Tuesday. And to me, that signified that this is a presentation of numerology for the whole world, whether or not everybody in the world believes it. It's one that's visible, and so it would affect people. And because I have seen so many events within my own life and within others and in the world, all coming to an intersection. And that involves being able to sort of read the signs, understand synchronicity, how it works, archetypes, and just events in the world and how they're all interrelated. I knew at the beginning of this year that a new age was about to begin and the old one was about to pass. And I remember saying that to my brothers. I said, well, here's to, the new age and goodbye to the old one. So by saying it's a new age, I was meaning that the world was in the process of changing. And all the chaos and violence and destruction of the riots and that combined with COVID. And it doesn't take a prophet to see that the world is starting to burst at its seams. But I had a spiritual understanding of what it all means and where it's going. So anyway, I figured that because the number 2 in multiples has played a big part in my life and it signified a lot, I figured that 22222 would also. And so I just thought to myself, well, I'm going to make a prediction that on the 22nd of February, it's going to be a massive event or series of events. It's going to impact the world and in a transformative way. It's going to change everything. And so on that day, I had some very significant personal revelations regarding my own life. Subtle, but very significant. I'm not going to get into that. But the day passed with nothing happening. I didn't see anything on the news. I didn't witness anything. I didn't have anybody tell me that, an event happened. So I was like, okay, well, I didn't have any expectations. I was 50-50. Maybe maybe something will happen, but maybe it won't. But I'm still going to make the prediction anyway. 2 days later, Russia invades Ukraine. Pretty close, and to me, that's close enough to count, because the odds of it being that close are pretty small. But then I thought to myself, I betcha that was the day when Russia began operations, or they finally had the go-ahead on the 22nd. And I was figuring it would just be a guess. Well, I looked it up on Wikipedia, the article on Russia and Ukraine. Turns out the 22nd was the day that, if I understand it correctly, Russia, they didn't invade, I don't think, but they entered Ukrainian territory, and I think it was a territory that was sympathetic to the Russians. So yeah, I think that's kind of cool. I don't talk about numerology much with people because I don't expect my personal experiences to convince them. I mean, my subjective experiences with it, the subjective aspect is what makes the numerology significant to me, but I can't really communicate to anybody that that's objectively real, even though I do think it's connected to objectively real events. So anyway, that it might sound like a very vague prediction, right? Something big is going to happen, something massive, something worldwide. Well, if I made predictions like that all the time, like the way the Jehovah's Witnesses predict the end of the world is about to come, and they keep changing the dates, and eventually they're going to get it right just by pure chance. And events in the world produce large-scale events over time. It's bound to happen. But I've never done this before. There's only one time I made a prediction using numerology, and I think it predicted something, but it was something very small and personal, and it's not something that I could communicate. So what's interesting about the number 2, and usually when I talk about it showing up in a synchronistic way, I usually go with it has to be 3 in a row. And I have a lot of other sort of tests that I measure numerology by. I don't just assume that every time I see a triple number, it's significant. Just like I believe that astronomical events can have symbolism. The problem with astrology is not that can't happen. It's that they see every single movement of a planet as meaning something. No, it doesn't. But that's for another time. So I want to get into an explanation of how numerology works, why it works, and the theory and philosophy behind it, which is tied very much to a logical reason why numbers symbolize things in a synchronistic way. Don't bother Googling numerology. The first time I realized, oh my gosh, there seems to be something to this. I Googled numerology, and it's all like vague. Number 2, vague astrology websites where they tell you that if you see the number 2, your angel is watching, and it's like, why would I believe you? So I had to come up with a basic logic for myself, and I will get into that. But right now, I'm just going to say that the number 2 simply represents 2 opposites in relationship to each other. And so for me personally, I mean, that's That barely needs explanation. And for me, the number 2 has represented the two opposites in harmony. So yin and yang, male and female, all that. And the invasion of Ukraine and the war going there is the exact opposite of that. So I didn't really know why. And then it occurred to me that the number 2 does not necessarily represent the two in harmony. It simply means that there are two forces in relationship to each other. And in this case, that relationship is conflict. Before this happened, there was a relationship between Russia and Ukraine, but no different than the relationship between two neighboring countries. Not full-out war. I mean, it's not the same exact thing. It's complicated. I don't understand all the history and politics behind it. It's really kind of confusing. So anyway, the fact that there is a numerological connection to this, and the fact that it coincides with so many spiritual events happening in my own life and other people's lives. Not all of them on the 22nd, but within, the month of February, and certainly increasingly as the 22nd came up. So I believe that the 22nd will be the linchpin on which the rest of history rotates. And yeah, so because there is a spiritual manifestation in the objective world, and that includes both light and dark. And if it's time to choose, like, are you going to choose light or dark? And the spiritual significance of that gives me great hope that this war is not just like, there's an actual reason for this war that's a lot bigger than the war itself. And I believe that, as awful as it is a stage the world has to go through to enter a better world. It's kind of like birth pangs. It's change leads to chaos, because when things change, all the orders fall apart, but it has to happen in order for new order to be created, so we can recognize all the toxicity and dysfunction in the world and decide we want to live in a better world. How are we going to do that? After World War II, they created the United Nations, if I'm getting that correct. I know there was a League of Nations before that. It didn't work. But the UN, for all of its faults and imperfections, whatever you think about the politics of the UN, which I don't know a lot about, I just know that there's some weird stuff about it that don't seem to make sense. It's good that we have it, and that's what's kept us stable. If we didn't have it, I think that the world would be a lot more chaotic. So that's a minor example. I mean, it's minor compared to this, because this is not just about like practical, let's stop war. There's a spiritual dimension to this. That's what I believe anyway, and I feel very confident in that. But I don't feel the need to try to convince anybody. To the people that I've shared spiritual things in my life and the spiritual journey. Those close to me who get it, I'll talk to them, but I'm not going to try to convince anybody. The reason I'm putting this video out there is just to share it with somebody and to try to articulate it and see if I can. I'd like to write a book about this stuff, but for right now, the best writing is a difficult thing for me because I'm a perfectionist, and making videos lets things flow easier without having to go back and rewrite stuff. So anyway, that's all I'm gonna say. So in summary, I've covered numerology, the fact that spiritual events in my life have intersected with this and in other people's lives, talked about the philosophy of numerology. I've referenced synchronicity. And so in future videos, I want to talk about the theory that I have for how numbers work, how they operate in relationship to each other, and the reasons why they take on a spiritual significance that is not merely a projection, but it is rooted in the logic of how numbers work. And I haven't figured it all out, but I have basically figured out, most of the numbers 1 through 9. And anyway, so that is where I will leave it.